Welcome to Patreon episode 16 of Salsidoparanormal. I'm your host, James Salcido, and tonight I'm sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show on the podcast website. But since this is a Patreon episode, I do not need to go into autopilot and go over the usual introduction because this is a Patreon show, which means if you're hearing this, you're either live, listening live with me on Discord, or you have signed up for the Patreon and are supporting the show. So thank you all either way. And with that, I can get to these stories here and get started on that. So let me see here. I think I'm getting tired. I'm on the last episode of the night that I'm recording here, and just went into autopilot there. So this first one says, I have been seeing odd things from the corner of my eye lately. They're just small blurs or figures, either pure white or very dark in color. They move too quickly for me to make out any other details. When I try to find them, they're gone. I have been performing rituals recently, but nothing crazy though. They're really very positive in nature, and I don't think that whatever I have been seeing is malicious. I wonder if these figures are spirits of people or other entities. Either way, I feel that they have been around for a long time. And that's a really short one, but it's a neat one as well in a way. You have someone who is sort of working with some kind of magic, sounds like. And again, magic is however you make it. So it doesn't sound like they even mention themselves they're not out to do any harm. I wonder, again though, I'm curious, were these things always there before they started that? And they just never noticed them before, or they were not visible before until they started the magic, or are they around now because of the rituals, because of the magic, or the energy that's generating? And again, I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just curious what kind of connections there are. And I've always wondered about this between rituals and any kind of sort of deliberate, I don't want to say manipulation, deliberate interaction with the world in different ways, whether it's energy or intention or any of these things, and then the paranormal and how all that works together. If it all, I'm sure it's all connected, but what can happen when you start doing those things, and if it does sort of start to get the attention of other beings, and or start generating enough energy for other beings to want to be in the area. I don't know, but that's just a neat one because again, you have this person that's not freaked out, they're not worried, but they're just noticing these figures, smaller or shorter figures, and again, you have reports of these kinds of beings all around the world. They have different names and different appearances in different ways, but there's versions of them just all over the place. But of course here that the writer is just seeing them just briefly and not in detail. But yeah, I thought that was a neat one because that just shows you can, again, as I always say, paranormal or supernatural does not automatically equal evil. Evil doesn't automatically mean bad. And this is a good example of that, I think. And in terms of even ritual or magic as well, too, just and to show both of those things don't always have to be negative. So, moving on to the next one here, and this one says, "I am a 30-year-old female. I'm a nurse. I have never experienced anything paranormal until recently. This happened at around 1:30 a.m. on my second night working the night shift. I was sitting at the nurse's station on the second floor with another nurse and a nurse's aide. I suddenly heard a clear, again, psst sound, whisper behind me. Surprised, I turned to look at the window, expecting to see someone there. My colleagues did not hear the sound. I checked the whole floor, the window, but found no one uh, outside of the room. The area beyond the window is the back of the hospital, near the electrical room and the morgue. I do enjoy horror movies and paranormal stories, which is what led me to this forum online, of course. Despite all this, I am very skeptical by nature. But this incident made me realize that I have been seeing shadows in my peripheral vision while working in this facility, though I didn't pay much attention to them until now. I still think about the voice and wonder if it might have been a person outside the window. But what do you all think? And that's where that one ends. I would think it was a voice outside the window, then someone else would have heard something. But I mean, I could be wrong on that. But the shadow figure thing, that doesn't surprise me. And just, again, I don't think I've done a whole show on it yet, but there's just so many reports from people that work in the medical fields, and the first responder fields, and all those things. But particularly like in this situation where it's a hospital and you have people there working there, so many accounts of these places having activity going on in them. And I really wonder if there is a single hospital out there that never has any activity, or if there's just so many places where none of it gets reported, because that's not something you really want to have sort of out there in the open, in the public, in full view of everyone, reports of things going on that half the people or more maybe are not even going to believe. And then rumors are going to start about, unfortunately, about the qualifications of the people working there. If they're having all these experiences, well, then, of course, the stereotypical idea is, well, they must be mistaken. There must be something that they're something wrong with them or something like that, unfortunately. So I understand why that's not advertised. I mean, really, it's not like you want to, I understand why that isn't done, but so many reports. I mean, again, I could do shows on whether it's on the buildings themselves that are hospitals or that were former hospitals, or the people that worked in them. Either way, there are just so many reports of things that happen in these kinds of places. I've only been to hospitals a few times in my life, that I remember anyway, and they always feel like they are just packed with people. But the thing is, it's packed with people that you can't see. But it's just like this sense of there are people all around, even if you don't see them, and they're just coming and going and are staying, but the places always seem so much more crowded to me than they are physically. And I've had that a couple of times, the last couple of times over the years I've been to hospitals. I've had that sensation. So yeah, I don't know. There's something to that, obviously. But moving on to the next one here. And let's see. Okay. This one says, I think our house is haunted. One of the first strange incidents happened on Christmas morning in the basement. My older brother and I were playing on a new indoor swing. The swing was at the start of a hallway with an office and guest room at the end. Both of us felt an uneasy sensation of being watched while alone in the basement. We turned to look down the hallway, where we sensed a presence. Near the office door, there were some bins stacked against the wall. Behind the bins, we saw a shadowy figure peeking out, watching us. The figure had no discernible features, only visible as a head and shoulders. The shadow moved slightly, but mainly stared at us. I sat on the swing, staring back at the figure. Without realizing it had happened, my brother had ran away upstairs, leaving me alone. Once I realized this, I quickly fled upstairs. The experience left me terrified of the basement for a long time. I avoided going to the basement alone, which confused my parents. Both my brother and I remember this scary experience vividly. We've had many more strange experiences since then. I still don't know what we encountered that day. And that's where that one ends. I'm wondering if it was sort of crouched behind. I'm wondering how tall the stack of bins was. If this was some form of like a child-sized entity, a being, and it was a child of some kind watching them play, sort of maybe wondering what the swing was like, wondering what they were doing. Sometimes I wonder about that with some of these encounters. How do we know who's there, or why they're there, or the sort of the age of the being, whether it's in mind or in body, or physical appearance anyway, or spirit. I wonder if sometimes some beings are just there because they enjoy watching others have fun, or they're just curious about what others are doing that are having fun. I think that wouldn't surprise me if that explains some sightings of, or some weird experiences people have, like similar to this one. So yeah, I wonder about that with the bins, how tall they were. But so yeah, that's a neat one there. I'm glad that they got out of there. I'm guessing. I wonder where this figure went after they left. And but it's hard to know. But it sounds like they've had other experiences. I wonder if they mean they've had a lot of other experiences in the house. Then that could lead to more questions about maybe was all of that connected to this figure they saw, the shadow figure they saw, or not, or if they've just had experiences in general wherever they've been at, because then that would also indicate maybe some kind of a sensitivity towards these things. So moving on to the next one here. And this one says, my mom had an encounter that made her believe in ghosts or spirits while working as a nurse in a geriatric care facility. So again, you have nursing homes here, nurses. The nursing home where she worked had been the town's original hospital, but it had since been repurposed. This happened around lunchtime in the basement feeding room. My mom and another nurse were moving residents who couldn't feed themselves into the room. The first resident my mom brought down was a blind, wheelchair-bound man. She noticed 4 chairs arranged around a table, as if recently used. She put the chairs away and left to bring the next resident down. The 2 nurses passed each other at the elevator, so the writer's mom and the other nurse, maintaining a steady pace. When my mom arrived with the 3rd resident, the chairs were back in the same position. My mom put them away again, thinking it was strange. By this point, there were 3 blind and or wheelchair-bound residents in the room. On her next trip down, the chairs were out again. My mom put them away once more and stayed longer than she had before. The other nurse entered and asked if the chairs had been down again. Apparently, both of them had been putting the chairs away every time they had entered the room. This happened in a room full of severely disabled residents, unable to move the chairs themselves. My mom later learned about a spirit named H, who frequented the basement. Other staff members were aware of H and considered him harmless. The feeding room was a repurposed morgue and or office combination. The adjoining room still had an autopsy table, but was used for storage. And that's where that one ends. So that is an amazing one there, because you have people that are coming and going. So it makes me wonder, for the patients that are the residents that were there in that basement after they were brought down, the ones that could see, or even the ones that could hear anything, what did they experience? Did they hear or see the chairs being put down again? I would guess they had to have. I guess maybe not had to have. There is technically possible, maybe. I don't know, but that is an amazing one, just because it's almost like one or more beings were sitting at that table, at those chairs, and all of a sudden they got chased away from their chairs, and so they just put the mat down again. Every time. Either that, or of course it was some kind of meant to be some kind of communication between whoever was there and the people, the living people, the physical ones that were there. I don't know. Either way, that is amazing for that to happen that many times in a row. And you're talking chairs here, so it's not like it's extremely lightweight material. It would take some effort and to do that. So that was a neat one. I was surprised at that, and to find out that it wasn't just happening with the writer's mom that was having the experience. It was happening with the coworker. So those chairs were going back, or being put back where they had been, like 5 or 6 times, not just once or twice. That's quite a bit of energy being used to do that, I would think. So, thought that was a neat one. Moving on to the next one here. I think we have time for at least one more, maybe 2. We will see. Let me see here. This one says, not much in the way of the paranormal has happened to me in my 55 years of life in this world. I live in a house built around 1900, which doesn't have much paranormal activity. A funeral home is visible from my kitchen window, which makes me wonder why there aren't more ghosts here. The only unexplained event that happened here involves electric candles hanging from my bedroom ceiling. I put them up for Halloween and left them there. The candles' batteries were dead at the time of this event, though I did have plans to replace them at some point. One night, even though I knew that the batteries in the candles were dead or dying, a candle started turning on and off. I asked it to stop because I needed to sleep, and it did. The next morning, at around 5 a.m., the candle lit up again as I woke up. I asked it to turn off and on in order to communicate. which it seemed to do. I told the, in quotation marks here, entity that I had to shower and the activity stopped. After the shower, I invited communication again, and the candle responded. I established a system of on for yes, off for no. I asked questions like, did you live here? And are you related to me? With no response. When I asked if it was just passing through, the candle indicated yes. I set some ground rules for the activity. No scaring me, or waking me up, or jumping out at me. After this interaction, the activity ceased. The battery eventually did die, and even after replacement, nothing else happened. I plan to replace the batteries again, possibly in September. I am curious to see if any activity will happen with new batteries. So that's that one. That is amazing in a way. It's like the flashlight experiment that you see on some paranormal shows and things. And I've heard about that and I've seen it done. I think I've mentioned this before. I even had a minor experience with it in my own home once with a friend, and but in this case, I like how whoever was there was just saying hi in a way, and they were just passing through. And it seems like maybe they were because nothing else happened before or after that. So also, of course, the candles, the electric candles, the lights makes me think of course, Stranger Things, the Netflix TV show. But it's just really odd how there was no other activity before or after. And especially living so close again, not that every graveyard or cemetery is going to have activity for sure, but I think it's funny that the writer there was almost making a joke, or maybe not even joking, about how they were surprised there wasn't more activity there or nearby. But so yeah, I don't know. That's a neat one. I guess just because we're down to 2 minutes left here, I'll just talk about the experience I had. Well, I had a couple really. Two, one in an actual public event where I went to see this presentation with a friend of a paranormal investigation group. And I don't know if they're still around, so I won't go into details about who they are and all that right now. But they were showing their equipment and how it all worked. And they mentioned the flashlight experiment, where you had these certain kinds of flashlights where to turn it on or off, you just twisted the bottom of it and it would turn on or off. And they would use those, again, sort of the way the writer did there in that experience, to communicate, to try to get yes or no answers, or to just get information. And after they showed everyone this flashlight and how it worked, they set it down. And on this they even had little stands for them. And the flashlight, as this guy was talking, turned on its own, I thought that was pretty neat. So if it was just yeah, and that's all the time I actually have for this episode. But it was really neat because if it was rigged, well, they timed it just right. But if it wasn't, then someone was there at the library with us all that we didn't see. So just a little neat encounter there that I had some years ago now. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsidoparanormal. Take care.